Hi, I'm Rebecca Page and I'd like to show you our new wraparound top. You can either wear it pregnant or not pregnant. There's a slight modification that I'll tell you about in a moment. This is me not pregnant in one. There is a cross part to the top, and then the rest of it is all just ties, which can get a little bit crazy getting dressed, and I'll show you how I do it in a moment. There is also a cami option to the top. This one here has the cami sewed in, it's the white bit there, and I've used fold over elastic along the edges, but there's also a bias binding piece should you prefer that. And that is the cami just stitches into the side seam and into the shoulders, and that's completely optional if you want to use that. Either you can just have it as a modesty piece or just personal preference, or for nursing. So if you're using it for nursing, the way the nursing access works is these parts are crossed over the front, and you pull the crossed over part down and the cami part up for access. So I'll show you how to put one on in just a moment, but this is it. So this is the wraparound top. I hope you like it. So here I am in the other one. I have got myself on a vest top underneath because I didn't want to be not wearing anything on camera, and then I have got the top with the cami piece on so that you can see that the cami piece finishes here and it can be pulled up quite easily for nursing. So this is how I would have it on to start getting dressed. I just pulled it on over my head, which I wasn't going to do in front of the camera while not wearing very much. So anyway, the first thing about getting dressed in this is you'll notice that the top itself is quite short. It comes to, that's my bust there, so it's about an inch below the bust line, or the bottom of the bust, where my bra finishes, and some people have asked why haven't we made it longer. This top is all about flattering the figure and making sure there are not too many layers, but there are enough layers to cover you. If we had made the top longer, which you could do, then there's just more layers, which can get a little bit unflattering for both pregnancy and non-pregnancy. Now, if you are doing it for pregnancy, this is the length of the pregnancy ties. Just keeps going, doesn't it? It's actually in 3 sections. That's section 1 there, and then that's section 2 in the middle, and then that's section 3 that attaches to the top. So there's 3 separate sections of ties. If you're doing it for pregnancy, use all 3. I can't recommend it enough because you then have the ties, you'll see how much I overlap them while I'm wearing them, and then you get a really good coverage. And if you are far along in your pregnancy, or it's not your first pregnancy, you'll know that the belly doesn't, it's not just some solid mass, it does move around while you're moving, and given how big it can get towards the end, for some ladies, myself especially, you do want to have a really good overlap, so you'll need all 3 lengths of ties in order to get that overlap later in pregnancy. If you are not pregnant, I've done all 3 because this is one of our testing versions, but if you are not pregnant, you can do all 3, however it will give you kind of you'll cross over a lot more times than you would otherwise, so you'll get kind of a bit more excess bulk out the sides here, which if you're wanting something shapely or slim looking, whatever you like to do, you look super curvy, however you are, you might not want that extra bulk around the tummy, around the back, and then also the top of the bottom where it all crosses over. So what I would recommend for that is just use the 2 sections of ties, leave out that centre straight piece, only do the 2 diagonal end pieces. So when I'm getting this on, how I do this, and you can do it however you want, I'm just going to show you how I do it because I have done this a few times now, is I get one of the ties, and I put it on a chair or a dresser or a table next to me so that it's out of the way. Then I make sure the other one is not tied up in knots, which it can be after going through the washing machine, and then I make sure that the back here is flat across here. Now if you have the cami on, what it will do is it will pull this part around. Because it's attached, the cami is attached at the side seams, it will pull this so that the side seam is straight. If you have not got the cami on, what you will find is that this won't have anything to pull it this won't be pulling it forward, and just naturally this whole thing will fall backwards. And what that does is it means your side seam is not going straight down your side, it'll be pointing down your back a little bit. So then you'll end up with this big kind of bulk of fabric here at the back where it's all a bit flappy. And if both side seams are doing that, it can be quite a large flap of fabric. That's not how it's drafted. You want to pull it so that the side seams are relatively straight down your sides, and then then you've got the back flat. And then the next thing I do is I pull this so that this straight bit is running flat across my belly and that's running flat down. So it should cross all the way over to the other side. This does give quite a high bust coverage once you've got both sides on, which it was designed for looking quite modest, for not pregnancy or for during pregnancy, as your bust develops and changes over pregnancy, that you get all the coverage you want. You can of course pull it down however you want to give the coverage you want, but that's how it's designed to sit, is all the way across the bust like that. So I'm holding this all the way across to the other side. I'm just ignoring this one here, and if I turn around so you can see, I'm making sure this bit here as it comes out this side is flat, and then I'm going to cross over the back. And if you can see here, I've got probably, I guess that's 1.5 to 2 inches overlap there, so I'm overlapping quite high. I'm going to just slightly above where my bra strap, the bottom of my bra strap sits, so I'm really going around, and then I'm just making sure I don't step in it underneath me to get all confused. And then the front one, I want to make sure, this is the other critical one, because this will make sure the top doesn't pop out as you're wearing it. I'm crossing all the way under the bust, and I'm not so worried about this bit here. If you've got a really flat tummy, that won't pull up. Mine isn't so flat, so mine rolls up a little bit as I go around there, but that's fine. I'm going to cross over that, and then I'm crossing to the back. And then as I get to the back here, again, I want to give it a solid kind of 1.5 inch overlap, so that it sits really nicely. And then I'm going to try and keep the straps flat as I go round, and then I'm just going to keep doing that, and I'm like doing a little dance, stepping over the bottom of the tie there, and then I'm crossing over, and I'm making sure I'm getting a really good overlap. And then if I'm doing the non-pregnancy version, the tie will finish about there, so I wouldn't wrap any further. If I was doing the pregnancy version, I would make sure I was getting a really good overlap and fold right to the bottom. And then here, what I do is with the bottom of this tie, I just tuck it. I keep this really nice and not tight, but it's really firm, and I've just tucked it up under there. And then I do the same thing, I just turn in the other direction. So I'm going to make sure this is really crossed and sitting nicely. Now you don't need to worry quite so much about coverage this time round, because you've already covered all of your skin bits or your vest top underneath. And I'm just turning around, and you could do this a little slower so you don't get dizzy, and go all the way down and around, and then to just wherever you want to stop. So then when I'm done, just make sure I can't see any of my serging stitches there, and then I'm going to tie it whichever side I want. So I've just pulled this out, and because there's a longer length on this one left, I'm going to decide I'm going to tie it there, and I just give it a little bow, and you can fiddle around with that to make that all nice and pretty. So that is how I tie mine. This has got the 3 links to the ties, so this is giving a slightly thicker coverage on my tummy, but again, this was one of our test ones, so we did make it for a pregnant lady. If you were doing non-pregnant, you'd have 1/3 less strap, so you just do slightly less of an overlap, or less times round. But the key things are to make sure that the back is flat before you tie, that you've got the side seam straight, and that you're getting a solid 1.5 inch overlap across that back, so that when you move, as you're doing things during the day, that's not popping back and up. You need to have it really flat and firm against the back piece, and then just do the rest of it however you like. So that is that. Enjoy, and I hope you love making this pattern as much as we love designing it.